Hey, everybody. It's Cider Week Hudson Valley, and it is Saturday. It's our last Saturday of Cider Week Hudson Valley. We've gone completely virtual this year, which has been really, really exciting. We have a full range of content now from all these amazing broadcasts we've done over the last week over at our YouTube station. Many of you are watching from there just right now. Our YouTube channel is New York Cider Association TV. So please check out some of the past programs that we've run this week. They're amazing. So I'm Scott Ramsey. I'm the Executive Director of the New York Cider Association, and it is absolutely my pleasure to welcome you to this encore presentation of Orchard Hill's pairing their Pommeau with Isigny Ste-Mère Normandy cheeses, and it's phenomenal. Now, when we ran this the first time last weekend, we did not play the video that Doan and Sutherland does such a good job of, the mixologist at Orchard Hill, making their drink Battle of Hastings-on-Hudson. So I'm going to play that video for you first. So you can partake in getting ready with that cocktail. And then we'll come back and we'll watch the video with the pairing of the cheese and the Pommeau. So if you'll hang tight for 1 second, we will pull this up. All right, here we go.
Hello, this is Karl duHoffmann and Donan Sutherland here. He's our bar manager and mixologist here at Orchard Hill Cider Mill. And we are here today to demonstrate a cocktail using our 1066 Pommeau. What's the name of the cocktail today, Donan?
It's called the Battle of Hastings-on-Hudson.
And we call it Battle of Hastings because the 1066, which is named for the invasion, the Norman invasion of England.
Year of the Norman invasion.
Was famous for the Battle of Hastings. And of course, we do have a nice town in the Hudson Valley called Hastings-on-Hudson. So what's this cocktail and how hard is it to make?
All right, so this is a super easy. We're going to actually do 2 variations today. One, the first one's going to be on the rocks, and super easy. Both of these cocktails are just going to be 50-50. So 2 ingredients, 50-50, super easy. We're starting with, both of them will have 1066. This first one we're going to do on the rocks glass, fill it up with ice, and then the second ingredient is going to be Dolin Vermouth. It's a nice sort of delicate sweet vermouth, but a white vermouth.
So it's Dolin Blanc.
Dolin Blanc. So we're going to go with 1.5 ounce of each. Start with the Pommeau. And then with the Dolin Blanc. And there you have it.
What's our garnish today?
We're going to do a garnish. Since we're an orchard, what do we have? We have apples.
Makes sense.
Nice little apple slice in there. There you go. Look at that. Isn't that pretty?
Very refreshing.
Super refreshing. Very delicate. Just a nice,
easy drinking, low alcohol. The Dolin Vermouth, the Blanc, is a fortified vermouth. It's quite elegant, quite delicious, and man, it goes well with 1066. We've been slamming these back. And if you can't find the Dolin Blanc and you happen to run across some other white style aperitif wines like, let's say, Lillet, that would work. And today we have a variation with the Coqui Americano. Now, Coqui Americano is not like a vermouth because it's bittered with gentian instead of wormwood. You know, that's what makes a vermouth is that it's bittered with wormwood, whereas Coqui has the gentian root. So this is another variation, 50-50, the same exact drink, but we're going to serve it up so you get to see what it looks like.
So first, you're going to want to take your coupe and or whatever glass you'd like to use and chill it. Dump that out. I'm going to take your mixer. Start with the Pommeau again, 1066, ounce and a half. You could go 2 ounces if you want. A little more there.
A little extra doesn't hurt, right?
And then again, 50% of the Coqui.
Now, the Pommeau, as I hope you know, is apple brandy, which we've distilled from our own cider. It's aged for at least a year, most often more than that. And then it goes back in the barrel for another couple years. So this is our 750 bottling. It's our regular everyday Pommeau. It's delicious for sipping. It's a minimum of 4 years in the barrel before it goes in the, actually 3 years in the barrel, and maxes out about 5 years in the barrel in the blend. So this one is really good for mixing. So you can make these cocktails and enjoy it, but it's also quite good for sipping. So there you have your little martini style. So basically what you have here is kind of like a Manhattan or a martini, but you're replacing the spirit with the Pommeau. So it keeps the alcohol a little lower. It's perfect. So you can have a second drink without feeling like you're going to go, you know, the way of all flesh, as it were.
And then we're going to take, for the garnish, we'll just do a little bit of clementine. I left a little bit of the pulp on there so you get a little juice, a little squeeze, a nice little delicate bit of the orange oil or the citrus oil.
So there you have two variations of our sipper with no bubbles. It's all Pommeau focused. The Battle of Hastings-on-Hudson. Cheers.
Cheers. I'm going to drink these, Karl, not you.
I'm having one.
All right.
Awesome. Now I can say in person I've enjoyed that drink and it is absolutely delicious. So I highly, highly recommend it. All right. So now that we've got our drink ready and we know what we're drinking, let's move over to watch the pairing of Orchard Hill ciders with Isigny cheeses. It's absolutely amazing. So hang on one second. All right, here we go.
Hi, this is Karl duHoffmann from Orchard Hill Cider Mill, and I'm here today with Cara Warren from Isigny. Hello, Karen. Cara.
Hi. Yes, Cara. Yes, hi. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Cider Week. I'm Cara Warren. I work for Isigny Ste-Mère, which is a Normandy dairy cooperative. And I'm really psyched to be with Karl here to try all these beautiful Pommeaus and cheeses today. Really looking forward to it. Little brief history about Isigny. It's been around for 100 years, or a little more now, since it's 1909 was when it was started. Basically, the terroir is a marshland terroir, so very grassy, by the water, sort of sea salty grass that goes on. So the milk quality is excellent. And we'll get into a few more details about that in a moment, but I want to let Karl get a chance to get back in here and talk more cider, since this is Cider Week. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm very excited to have the cheese to complement the cider because it's just such a classic combination. And what makes it particularly exciting to me is that today we're actually tasting Pommeau. And Pommeau is not technically a cider. I call it cider adjacent. But before we start getting into all that, I think we should get a drink in our hand. And
yes.
So we do have a little cocktail recipe today that I call the Battle of Hastings-on-Hudson. And it's a really simple cocktail. You just take an old-fashioned glass, you add your ice, and then we take some Pommeau, which today we're using the green bottle, just the regular entry-level Pommeau. And it's half and half cocktail, so it's super easy. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Doing your best with Vanna White. So I'm doing just half of the Pommeau and then half of the Dolin Blanc Vermouth, which is a vermouth that, like the Pommeau, is made out of mistel, so it's wine-based that's fortified, and it has wormwood, which is what makes vermouth vermouth. So you just put the same exact volume as you did of the Pommeau. You put it on the ice. You stir it around a little bit, but it doesn't need a big, vigorous stir like a spirit cocktail would, because this is all basically wine-based. And then you have the Battle of Hastings-on-Hudson. There you go. So now we have something to drink while we talk about Pommeau. I mean, Pommeau, as my name for our Pommeau indicates, 1066 is the year of the Norman invasion. And Pommeau is a historically Norman beverage. Normandy is in the beverage realm. It's cider and Calvados, and then in between the two, Pommeau, which is basically you take some young Calvados that's already been aged, you blend it with some unfermented cider, put it in the barrel for some extra aging. And then you have a beautiful aperitif wine that's very flexible. You can mix it, you can drink it before dinner, you can drink it after dinner, very food friendly. I think particularly it goes well with some Normandy cheeses, which we're going to discover today.
Yeah.
And
So
the Battle of Hastings. Oh,
yeah.
Let's say cheers.
Cheers. Yeah.
Cheers.
Yeah.
The Battle of Hastings was
Delicious.
the decisive battle of the Norman invasion, conquest of England. And, you know, here in the Hudson Valley, where Orchard Hill Cider Mill is on the Soons family orchard and has been for over 100 years. Well, we haven't been there 100 years, but the Soons family have been there 100 years in the Hudson Valley. We have a town called Hastings-on-Hudson. So that's the inspiration for the name.
Ah, well done. It's delicious. It's I love that it has like the hint of apple with like the flowery effervescence of the vermouth. It balances really, really well. It's delicious.
It goes down a little too easy,
Mm-hmm.
as they say.
Especially for the summer. My goodness. Yes. So then I guess what we should do then is I'll talk about the Brie, which is a Brie. So basically, this is the bloomy rind that we grow, and then this is what we call the paste, which is a soft ripened paste. Basically, to make this cheese, we take grass-fed cow's milk from the Norman cow breed. They graze on grass 9 months out of the year. The rest of the year is hay that's made by the farmers. So basically, it's grass-fed. And then they have barley and clover mixed in with that. So they're munching on the best of Normandy, along with that sea salty dew that kind of hits that grass. You get this sort of minerality and very high butter fat content to the cheese. See, that's the cocktail working. So good. And then we add mesophilic and thermophilic cultures, so that this cheese is not your typical Brie. You know, some Bries can be overly stable. This has a lot of texture. It'll ripen over time. It's a stronger flavor. So what I'd like to do right now is I'm going to take a bite because I took a lot of the cocktail before. So let's try the Brie together.
Oh, wow, I've been chowing down on it.
Oh, you were sneaking. I was so focused on talking the education here. All right, so first thing when I try cheese is I like to hold it between my fingers, look at how, you know, the paste is perfect. It's bulging right now because we left it out at room temp for over an hour. It has a little bit of a yellow golden straw color because it is grass-fed. And then the next thing you do is smell to kind of get like that cellar mushroomy smell. And then the next thing I do is I taste it. It's perfect right now. The next thing is I'll wash it down with the cocktail. So you kind of have that sandwich of cocktail, cheese, cocktail again, and you get all the flavors. And it just kind of gets this magical run going that I think, yeah, you can eat too much of, for sure. It has like the earthiness and the mushroominess.
It's kind of like putting a little bit of a jam onto the cheese. The cocktail, you know, just has that, it coats the palate and coats the cheese, and sort of they marry nicely together. On the palate. I think that's a great pairing. Quite delicious. I have a question for you. At our orchard, after we do our pressing, one of the things we do is we send the pumice off to a local dairy farmer for the cows to eat. Is there anything like that happens in Normandy?
Not that I know of right now, but I'll be happy to follow up on that with the dairy cooperative, because it's I could see it happening. I mean, a lot of the farmers make their own Calvados on the farm. Yeah. And they drink it with their coffee, you know. It's right. It's the farmer way there. So I wonder if there's an idea with that.
Yeah, I wonder. For people who don't know, I mean, Calvados is an apple brandy that's regionally denominated to Normandy and Brittany. We don't make any Calvados, but we do make cider just like they do in Normandy at Orchard Hill. We use all the apples from the Soons orchard, which is, as I said, a 100-year-old family-run orchard. We press everything ferment it and age it and bottle it on the orchard. The only thing that isn't produced at the orchard that goes into our bottles here is the brandy, because we don't have a distillery license, and so we do ferment the juice and then we bring it to a nearby distillery. And we've been doing that for quite some time. We started actually making the brandy with Soon's Cider before we were licensed, before we were incorporated. It's how our business began. We were taking Soon's Cider, taking it over to the Tuttletown Distillery, which is the first new whiskey distillery in the state of New York since Prohibition. And the owners at the time had just gotten their license, and they would let us distill the brandy. They gave us the keys to the kingdom, and they let us run the stills ourselves. And then we filled some barrels, and they held on to them for years while we figured out what the hell we were going to do with them. And so by the time we opened, we actually had some aged brandy ready to go, and then we'd already actually blended it into Pommeau. And so the Pommeau was well advanced. So like we were just open and licensed for a year, and we were releasing Pommeau that was, you know, six to 9 years in the barrel. The funny thing is we didn't have anything younger than that at the time. We only had the old stuff, because as we started to open the business, our attention got diverted from making brandy. But now we've actually gotten to the point where we have over 50 barrels laid down of various ages of Pommeau. So we're well stocked. Should we taste the?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you a quick question, Karl. The type of apples that you use, what are the type of apples that you're using to make your ciders and your Pommeau?
It's a great question, because in Normandy, France, they have many different varieties, and they also have many different sort of types that those varieties fall under. Whereas in New York, most of the varieties are table fruit. In France, most of the varieties are for making cider and for brandy, and they're higher in acid, they're higher in tannin. They're even the sweets that they call that are the sweet ones are not really table fruit. You wouldn't sit down and eat them. And so that's a big difference between our Pommeau and French Pommeau. We don't have enough of that high tannin fruit and that super sour fruit to use in the Pommeau. We use those. We have some of that coming online for our ciders. Like this year, we have a harvest of like 1,500 gallons. So it's, it's starting to get some quantity, but still for the brandy. We predominantly use Macintosh, which is a very well-known acid variety here in New York State. And we've discovered that it makes a very expressive brandy. And we're quite pleased with it, though it's very different than Calvados in style and expressiveness. The other big difference is that when we age the Pommeau, we're not aging in the neutral old barrels like they do in France. We tend to use slightly newer French oak, still French oak, and we use used ones that have been, the initial flush is pulled out by winemaking. So there's some vinous influence in our Pommeau because the barrels that previously had wine aging in them, both white and red. So those are, in Calvados, they tend to mostly use barrels that have been used over and over again. They have some new barrels coming in, and that it varies from house to house. And there's certainly some houses that use wine barrels to influence their Calvados, but it's not typical. So it's certainly something unique about our Pommeau here in New York, that we're using newer French oak, still not brand new, but and we're using table fruit for the brandy and for the juice. So it's slightly different in character. We're definitely a New World Pommeau.
That's awesome. Okay, I'm excited to try it. I'm looking forward to it. So should we take a sip of the Pommeau?
Yeah. So the first Pommeau that we're tasting outside the cocktail is this. Hold on.
Great, listeners.
There you go.
There we go.
Life intervenes.
Yes.
Is the green bottle the same Pommeau that we used in the cocktail, and it says Verde on the label because it's a green label, so it's the 750. And this Pommeau has been aged from 3 to 5 years in the used French oak barrels. We blend different batches, different barrels, different ages to get to something that's youthful and vibrant and a little boozy, certainly more boozy than the reserve, so that people, if they want to make cocktails with it, it doesn't just sort of melt into the background, but it kind of stand up to it. But it's really a sipper at the same time. So
Yeah.
if you look at the color, we don't filter this. We just we let it we rack it off of any solids that are left over from the juice. So it's unfiltered, so it's not crystal clear. It's got a little haze to it, but that's texture and flavor that we don't want removed. If you smell it, it's very generous apple and vanilla, caramel.
I was thinking vanilla. That's perfect.
Yeah, and then the palate is a little sweetness, but it's not as sweet as you might expect for an aperitif. It has some nice toasted apple notes. I always think apple tart tatin. That's vanilla, like kind of the crust baked apple, and it has a nice bright note to it.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm learning about Pommeau with you right now. So how high is the alcohol content on this?
So this is a little higher. The French Pommeau are typically bottled at 17% ABV across the board. And so we try to aim for that neighborhood. The legal limit in France is up around 22, which normally you don't see bottles in the market that way, at least not often. I haven't. But we're not adding any water. So we're just blending barrels of different strengths, and we're trying to hit something that blends harmoniously together, and then we leave it alone. So this is about, I think this is 19%. So it's a little higher than the French varieties. And there's nothing added, nothing taken away. It's just wrapped off any solids, blended, and then bottled at natural strength.
Delicious. So then what I chose to kind of pair with this is there's a cheese called Mimolette, which looks like a cannonball when it's not cut up, and it has a natural cave-aged rind on it that makes it look like a moon or a pumpkin or something crazy. This is how it looks on the inside. It's so cave-aged, and annatto is added to the milk, so it gives it that bright orange look. Annatto is a seed from the Caribbean. Doesn't add any flavor, but just makes it brighter orange. The cheese basically starts as a sponge, and then we put it in a cave to ripen and grow a blue-green mold around, which we then, as it gets older, there's I don't know if I should say this on live TV, but there's mite action. It's affineur, which is the art of aging cheese. That's how we get this cheese to build airflow, and then it ripens this cheese over time. So
you might get away with it. You might get away with it.
What's that?
I said you might get away with it.
Yeah. This is a 6-month version, just so you know. It comes in 3, 6, 12, 18, and 24-month ages.
Wow.
So I didn't want to overpower the Pommeau, so this will have a sort of tender fruitiness to it. Its pliability, you see, it still kind of has a bendability to it. If you go more age, it's going to be very granular. You can see when you rub it between your fingers. It's good to then take the smell of it, and you get a lot of that savory, brothy, umami flavor that happens a lot with Mimolette. And then it's just fun to eat. So giddy up. It's very salty. That's because it's brined for 3 days, which is not common in a lot of cheeses. So we really once it's that curd sponge, it sits in brine for 3 days, and then we take it out to the drying cellars, where we sort of rotate them by hand. And then as it gets firmer and grows the mold, we then take a hammer to it to check the density of the cheese to see how long we should age the cheese. And they realize that by listening for the sound of the hammer on the cheese. So if it has any fissures or cracks inside of it, they'll say, okay, let's age this for 3. If it's solid as a rock or seemingly solid, then they'll age it much longer and condense the flavors and make it even stronger over time.
Wow.
But this happens to be one of the classics of north of France. Isigny is one of the prominent producers, and it has a great following for Halloween as well.
It's quite delicious. I love the texture of it. It's so finely, I don't know what you call that, the curd or the grain of it. It's just super.
Oh yeah, it's
Has
so
cracked apart.
semi-firm in terms of texture level. It goes like soft, semi-soft, then semi-firm, which would be this, and then it goes to hard aged, and then granular, I would say, after that. So yeah, this is definitely a perfect example of semi-firm. I would definitely say to that. And then a lot of times you can even reuse the rind for stocks and broth, because it has this really great like cellar earthiness in addition to that cheesy flavor that you and I are enjoying right now. So it's a pretty versatile cheese, and can give a lot of color to the plate. You can put zested over salads. It's great with Asian food because of that umami and the salt and the sweet. Actually, this, like I feel like Pommeau gives like that sour sweetness too. So it's all that playing with the palate that we're doing right now. Mimolette is great in that way. Really, really an excellent game changer.
These go well perfectly together.
I know. I'm like, I can't stop eating it. I'm like, we have to do another pairing? Okay.
It's interesting because people often say, oh, Pommeau, is it sweet? And you're like, well, it's a little sweet. It's not terribly sweet. It's definitely got some residual sugar. But then with this, it doesn't seem sweet at all.
Right.
It really balances it out quite perfectly, which, for an aperitif situation or an after dinner situation where you're having a little cheese, this is a lovely combination. And it's a little decadent.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I agree. I think it really brings, they're both being edged up in a good pairing. The cheese is edged up more like to another level, and then so is the drink. And in this pairing, it's really apparent.
Yeah.
So that's a perfect pairing. That's a 5 for me if you go 5 out of 5.
Well, I'm enjoying it too much to disagree. I feel like you're right.
Oh my goodness. So awesome. Happy Cider Week. Yay.
Yeah, exactly.
Our next, we have to move on. Unfortunately, we have to move on.
I know. So it's a punishment, but we have more great cheese in Pommeau, so it's tough all over.
Yeah, exactly.
So you want to talk about the next cheese?
I will try. So I brought us a very ripe Camembert. So I'll show the guests. This is what it looks like after an hour of sitting out. That's okay. That just means it's like going to be extra strong. And if you're a cheese lover, this is heaven.
You can almost drink that cheese.
Yeah, just like pour it over something.
I need to freeze the Pommeau so we can chew on the Pommeau and drink the cheese.
I mean, so basically at this point, it's definitely oozy. This is because the protein structure of the cheese is completely broken down. On this cheese, it has a geotrichum rind, which means it has, if you looked at some goat cheeses, there's like that brain wave that's on them. That's a kind of mold when I say geotrichum, and usually it gives a sort of yeasty, nutty flavor to the cheese. Isigny, we worked on this authentic recipe that we could bring to the US by doing the geotrichum on it. Most Camemberts that you get have a bloomy rind, like the Brie I showed you. Here we wanted to toy and try something different. So basically what we did was, to give it the French style, we really gave the geotrichum rind a fun ride. So I'm gonna put it on a cracker and we'll try it, and then we'll finish it off with the, well, you're gonna talk about the reserve in a moment here, actually.
Yeah, so the reserve Pommeau, you can see the color is just much darker. These barrels, this has some of the, you can see it's much darker. And that's just a lot more time in the barrels. And this, the green bottle, the Verde is 1066, is between 3 and 5 years in the barrel. This youngest element starts at 4 to 5 years, and then the oldest component at this point is some of the first barrels that we distilled. So they're pushing 10, 11 years now. And so it's just obviously compared to the 750 full-size green bottle, we have this tiny bottle because this is really meant for sipping, sometimes people say, oh, my friend was like, oh, I had some of your Pommeau and I used it to cook and it was so amazing. I was put it in this, put it in that. That's great for the younger version. But for this one, you really want to just sip on it. So it's just a lot more tertiary flavors, a lot more oxidation. If you smell it, it's not as much vanilla. It's got more concentration of flavors, a little drier, so it can stand up to these flavors that,
Yeah. So, and in Normandy, that's what sort of happens is the Camembert and the Pont l'Evêque, which are the terroir protected cheeses. That's what's meant for this pairing here. So, this should have like a very funky, I'm going to go for it, funky flavor. You get a lot of that kind of, I'm trying to figure out what the nicest way to say this, barnyardy flavors is what you get when you look at that. And a true French cheese that if you've been to Europe, it's borderline over the top, but if you love cheese, the smell well.
Yeah, but I find this to be very appealing. I mean, it's very ripe in, abbondanza, which is Italian, not French, but it has a lot, it's much of a muchness, but it's still very, to me.
That's very good. I love it. It almost, because the Reserve has like a hint of spiciness with the cheese, it gets that pepperiness at the end, like a lot more.
Yeah.
So then I feel like if you have the crusty bread and then you like throw it together with this cheese and you're just like drinking it back with friends, that's just like a European or upstate New York nice night. You just hanging out.
It's funny that you mentioned that, the Camembert and the Pont l'Evêque are, protected names. And it's one of the things that when we started making the Pommeau that was very much on my mind, because I feel that I admire so much that these regional specialties are protected in their identity so that the people who produce them can continue to produce them and be recognized for the intellectual heritage. And when we first started making our Pommeau, we didn't put Pommeau on the package at all. It's why we called it 1066, so that we could tell the story of Pommeau without having Pommeau on the label. And for two reasons. One, no one knows what Pommeau is. And so, was there an advantage? Maybe not. But also for the more important reason from our perspective was that there's a special place in hell for people who violate these DOCs. And and if you think about it, like, do you want a Chablis from California? No.
Not really. No.
You want a Chardonnay that is made in the style of Chablis. You don't want it to say Chablis because then it's a jug. And so I felt the same way at the time. I really did not want to put Pommeau on the bottle. And at the time, we were really pioneers. There was no one else really releasing commercially made Pommeau made here in the United States. That has changed dramatically. And a lot of the people who came along after us put Pommeau on the bottle. And we felt like, man, if we don't do this, we're going to sort of be left behind. And meanwhile, we were the people that were pioneering the whole thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So now we have Pommeau on the bottle. And we actually met one of the ladies from, a woman from the Calvados board. And we talked to them about promoting Pommeau in the United States. And, they're fighting the battle on Calvados. And so they have to, focus on their primary thing, which is Calvados. And so, though I still have a little bit of a mixed feeling about having Pommeau on the bottle because of that reason, I feel that, the United States government does not recognize Pommeau. So France has not come and said, you know what, we should do this. And if we can raise the understanding in the United States about Pommeau and about Calvados tangentially, maybe at some point in the future we can come to some kind of understanding where we come up with this is Pommeau American or some legal structure for it. Because right now in the United States, it's a little bit of the Wild West as far as the labeling goes. And,
Yes.
So we made the decision to just say, okay, we're going to call it Pommeau, even though that's not what we're going to do. And, we'll sort it out in the future rather than be left behind with our high-minded principles and, not getting the recognition for what we're trying to accomplish at the same time. So I'd like to talk about that because I think it is important. And I do think that, I have a lot of respect for this heritage and this tradition, and that's part of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it ensures that you don't have bad copycats is what happened, is really what it's about. I mean, within the system that I'm working, P stands for Appellation Origin Protection. And the appellation is Isigny. So we have Beurre d'Isigny, Brie d'Isigny, Camembert d'Isigny. And basically what that ensures is we say what the cows are going to eat, basically. Pardon the interruption. And then also it says how far the milk can be sourced. So it goes from 20 miles away for the AOP to 40 miles away for the non-AOP. So, and everything is made within, 2 days, basically 48 hours. So there's a lot of restrictions that it makes sure that you're getting the same quality and that you're not getting something from even another part of France. I mean, when we talk about the northwest of France, Normandy, it's a very nautical culture, a marshland. I mean, if you go around France, it becomes much drier. There's different plants and flowers. So, and basically what the cow eats is what you get in your milk. And like the same thing with apples.
So this part of France, this part of Normandy is north of Honfleur, more towards the Belgian border, or where is it?
It's actually, so there's Caen, and then you keep going west and northwest. And it's actually closest to the D-Day battlegrounds is where
northwest. So it's the opposite. I'm sorry, I got my.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's okay.
It's further. Okay, yeah, it's toward the Atlantic.
It's almost in Brittany, but you're not in Brittany.
Mm-hmm.
The big attraction out there is the great castle, the Mont Saint-Michel.
I've been there.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's like the castle that people go to see. That is the castle of all castles in France. It's surrounded by water. It's beautiful. Just the entire villages and the towns of Isigny, of in Normandy. When you go there, I want to say there's nothing special, but there is something special. Like it's just farms, and it's just these old French towns. There's no, besides the D-Day attraction and the Mont Saint-Michel, these guys are just making milk and making Camembert and Pommeau. The third terroir-based cheese is Livreau. That's the other one that they do very well there.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, if you go to the supermarket there, it's like 30 Camemberts. It's like a yogurt section, It's pretty cool. So, well, anyway, I digress a little bit. I've gone on and on about Normandy. We should check
as we should. That is the theme. It's Pommeau. It's Norman cheeses. It's 1066. It's the Battle of Hastings. It's like
right. It's always about the history and the end run,
I mean, the stories, like cheese is cheese. A glass of Pommeau is a glass of Pommeau, but it's the history. It's the people. It's the stories that, having been there, you've been there. I've been to Calvados producers. I've been, to Le Mont Saint-Michel and, Honfleur, and, you go to these places and you see the history and, Richard the Lionhearted. I mean, it's just got so much going on. It's such a great place. I really, I've never seen the the Bayeux tapestry. That's what I really want to see. But
one of these days, me too. I always kind of don't get to it in time because it closes by like 5 p.m. It's early, so
I bet.
Bayou's a wonderful place, but
I really that was there's just so many when you're always under a time constraint and there's so many things to do and there's only so many hours in the day, so you have to make choices. But
that's what I'm talking about.
It's on my bucket list. So
Okay.
you have one more last thing to pair with the Pommeau here.
Yeah, we have one more. It's so this is Shanti whipped cream. So Shanti is basically the recipe, a French recipe for whipped cream, but they add a little bit they add a little bit of vanilla or a liqueur to it. In this case, we added bourbon vanilla from Madagascar, and it uses organic cream and organic sugar. So the best of everything. And then you put it on a pie or ice cream or in your case, berries, I think.
I got some strawberries.
Okay. I have soupy ice cream that was once caramel sea salt ice cream, but that's all right.
It's been out on the thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh-ah.
And the best thing about this whipped cream is it doesn't have the texture is amazing. It tastes like a hand whipped cream, so you're really getting the instant deliciousness that you want without any of the work.
Nice. Well, it's quite delicious.
Oh my god! And now I have to take a sip of this Reserve Pommeau. This is the best happy hour I've had in a long time. So thank you.
What? It's this is supposed to be work, right? I don't know.
I don't know either.
It doesn't feel like work.
I think we did all right. Thank you, Hudson Valley Cider Week.
Well, absolutely. And, thank you for taking the time to share these wonderful cheeses and all the information about it. And next time I'm in Normandy, I'm going to have to go and visit this co-op and see them making these fabulous cheeses and, get some Pont l'Evêque because I just love that cheese and it wasn't available this time. Next time.
Well, I'll just drive up to the cidery and drop some off to you too, That's the other thing.
I would love for you to come up one day and maybe do, I've talked about this with Rachel here so many times.
That's
like
right.
I want to do some kind of, cheese education, and you live close by and these are fantastic. You'd welcome any time to come and educate the people at the orchard that come through all the time. And maybe we can do this live one day. It would be
that would be great. No, I'm looking forward to that. This was wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Cheers. Cheers.
Yes. Cheers. Thank you again. And thanks to everyone for joining us this week.
Thanks for joining Cider Week. There's so many events going on. Don't miss them. And there's just so much going on. You want to make sure you catch them all, because I think with the virtual, even if you miss it when it's scheduled, you can probably catch it soon thereafter. Happy Cider Week. Bye-bye. Thank you.